Oh, they should call me David Bowie the way I go on about 5 years. Well folks, it's officially 5 years to the day that I uploaded my first YouTube video. And I thought I'd mark the occasion by having a reflection on my work since then. But first, I haven't been strictly honest with what I've just said, because whilst technically, yes, the oldest video on my channel is from the 17th of May 2018, that wasn't my first ever YouTube video. I'd been experimenting with history videos the year before, in 2017, but they were so bad that I deleted them all and did nothing for 6 months before deciding to have another go at it. In a way, that kind of sums up my whole creative process. I have a few stumbles before I finally figure it out. So let me take you back to the very beginning, to the whole reason why I started making videos in the first place. History's always been a massive part of my life. My parents always took me to visit castles and houses, museums, basically anything interesting. And from an early age, I had a voracious appetite for reading. When I was about 18, I realised that there wasn't really anyone on YouTube doing Yorkshire history. There was a gap in the market. And I thought, well, I could do that. And so 5 years ago today, I uploaded the video The Battle of Leeds, about the Battle of Leeds in the Civil War. And I remember just walking through town filming on my phone because that's all I had. I didn't have a proper camera, I didn't have a proper microphone, I didn't have good editing software. Nobody had ever taught or shown me how to make a video. I just picked up my phone one day and decided to do it. And that's basically the story for all of my early stuff. And yeah, they're really bad. They're really embarrassing. And it makes me cringe every time someone comments on them because there's a high chance that it's the only video of mine they've seen and maybe they've gotten the impression of me that I'm not very good and they're probably thinking to themselves, oh, she's a bit crap, I'm not going to bother watching her, when actually if they watched my newer things, they'd realise I'm much better. But, you know, can't help that. And as embarrassing as these videos are for me, I have to understand that they're an important part of my journey and development. I have to remind myself of where I started to fully appreciate where I am now. Quick tea break. So I was making these videos in my spare time when I was at university. And by the way, I never studied history or filmmaking at university. In fact, I'll show you what I did. There we are. Bachelor of Arts with first class honours in Peace Studies. Because my surname's War, you know, War and Peace. Anyway, I view this period from about 2018 to 2020 as being my formative education, because even though nobody was teaching me how to make videos, I was teaching myself through the years of practice making them in my spare time. And the reason that I was able to build up a small audience in this time was because people could see through the amateurism and mistakes because they genuinely enjoyed the content itself. I graduated from uni in March 2020 and had to enter the real world and get a job, and I really struggled with that. I hate the 9-to-5 life. I hated the feeling that my life was slipping away from me before my eyes, that this was literally it until I died. I hated not having the time to do what I really wanted to do. In fact, the only time I had to make videos was on a weekend, and so I'd research, write, film, edit and upload a video in a single day. That's why the videos from this period aren't very good, because I literally didn't have the time to make them properly. I was also very impatient, and I'm still working on that. Towards the end of 2020, I realised that the conventional life just wasn't for me. I couldn't function in the world like everyone else could. To quote the Kinks song, I'm not like everybody else. And what followed was a pretty intense period of depression because I felt like a failure and a waste of potential. And so in January 2021, I took a gap year to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And really, the only thing I had going for me was my YouTube channel. It was the only thing I felt confident enough in working on, because I was so insecure about everything else. So 2021 marks the start of me becoming self-employed. My videos were getting a bit better because I had more time to make them, but still not quite there yet. I began to experiment with things more. I was getting a bit more confident in developing a on-screen presence and style. I'd been doing the costume stuff for some time before this, but it really began to ramp up this year. And this is something that's just been a part of my life since childhood. I've always loved dressing up. On World Book Days at school, which is when kids dress up as book characters, I always had to improvise costumes because I never had any costumes bought for me. And so this gave me a high level of creativity in being able just to make costumes from whatever I had lying in the wardrobe. And this is just something that absolutely I love doing. Like, nobody else would put on a bedsheet and blue paint on their face when talking about Boudica. Nobody else would walk through Hull dressed as Amy Johnson, which, by the way, is one of my fondest memories because everyone kept staring at me because they recognised me as Amy Johnson. It was a great day. Also around that time, I was selected to be part of a YouTube campaign featuring regional creators, for which I am still immensely privileged and grateful for. My channel was tiny at the time, and it still is to be fair, but what made me stand out was the fact that I'd established such a strong personal brand. So for the photo shoot, I decided to dress up again as Amy Johnson because it was such an iconic look, and this image was on billboards and newspapers, and it was immensely gratifying to, well, see yourself on a billboard. I mean, what can you say? So 2021 was a really difficult time for me in a lot of ways. I was taking a total step into the unknown, taking a lot of missteps as well, but by the end of the year I really felt like I'd made the right decision for my life. I could have quite easily just given up and gotten a boring job somewhere and been miserable for the rest of my life, but I'm not that type of person. In fact, I'm strongest when I'm up against the ropes, when I have nothing left but the will which says hold on. To go a little bit Rudyard Kipling there. But by the end of 2021, I was fired up, I was ready to go, and so going into 2022, I was determined to put as much effort into the videos as I could. And they were getting better, but still not quite there yet. A major milestone for me was the Pablo Fank video in April 2022, because what that represents is my DIY attitude and being able to overcome difficult situations. So the video is mostly about a Beatles song, and I knew that if I used the Beatles song, I'd get a copyright claim. So I thought, well, I'll just do it myself then. And I don't really play the keyboard, I can't even really read music, but I learnt the song just for the video and I played it and it was great. A lot of people ask me how I remember my scripts. Do I use a teleprompt? And the answer's no, I just remember it. I've got a bit of a superpower in this regard because I can just read a paragraph a couple of times and then recite it off by heart. I do consider myself to be quite a charismatic and engaging speaker, but that's just because I've spent years practicing it. I certainly wasn't born with it. In fact, I was selectively mute at nursery, and I remember being so nervous having to speak in assemblies at school that I'd be shaking and speaking too fast. But it's absolutely a skill that you can learn. In fact, I think it's actually one of the most important skills you can have because you can make anything interesting. Your facts might be interesting, but if you sound boring, you're going to make the facts boring. And I get a lot of comments from people saying that they wouldn't normally find this topic interesting, but I've made it interesting for them. And that's immensely gratifying to hear, because that's basically my mission. I want to take these stories from history and make them interesting and entertaining and accessible for everyone. And I just want to thank you, everyone who's taken the time to say that I've made a topic interesting for them, because that really does mean a lot and I really do appreciate it. In June 2022, I finally left the BC era, by which I mean before Craven. Now, if you've been watching my recent videos, you'll notice the name Simon Craven appearing in credits. Well, who is this guy? Well, in short, he's my Dr. Dre, my producer. Meeting on Twitter and seeing some potential in me, screenwriter Simon offered one day to help me make my next video, which was on the Almondbury Hill Fort in Huddersfield. And with such radical developments as different camera angles, the impact was immediate. We continued to work on videos throughout that summer, and each video got better than the one before it. We were really learning and developing at a meteoric pace. All of the videos from this time are great in their own way. I mean, special mention to sitting in the same room as the world's oldest moving picture camera. That's one in a lifetime thing. But I think my favourite has to be actually the Lewis Carroll video, because there's just so much creativity on display. From the musical intro to the trippy Bandersnatch performance, it's really oozing with just originality in approaching this topic. Around this time I went through a rebrand because I'd been doing Yorkshire history up to that point and that was fine, but I began to feel a little bit uncomfortable and constrained because people would expect me to be the type who goes, "Hey up, White Rose, God's own country," which is just not me. Like, I find that stuff utter cringe, to be honest. That is just so not me. If you want people who do that tea towel tier history, well, there's plenty of them around, but that's not me, Chuck. And when my whole mission is just to make stories from history interesting and entertaining, why would I limit myself to one arbitrary topic of choice when I could do literally anything? So I cut off all my hair and decided that I would just make videos about whatever I found interesting. One video from this time which is interesting is the Jack Dupree one, because yeah, it flopped and I understand why, because I realised I was being too ambitious with my creative vision and in many ways it wasn't as accessible as previous videos, but I'm still really proud of the really original storytelling on display. I was really searching for a way to make it very cinematic and just to go beyond the very ordinary style of YouTube videos. So even though it didn't connect with the audience in the way I hoped, I'm still really proud of that and I consider it a hidden gem in my contemporary catalogue. A lot of what's frustrating about YouTube is the fact that time and effort is not proportionate to success. So you can put a lot of work into something and it will wallow in obscurity, whilst meanwhile someone can eat a burger and get 1 million views. But I've learnt to, not get frustrated by the arbitrary and capricious whims of the algorithm because it's not healthy. For the sake of my mental well-being, I found it much better to be grateful for the support I already have, to all the people who do watch and share my videos. So that, even though I'm not getting millions of views, I'm still bringing joy to people, and that's what matters. In January 2023 came the Vietnam video, and this represents slamming the accelerator pedal on our development. I'm really, really proud of how this video turned out. Building an entire set was just a masterstroke in my opinion, because it opened the door to so much potential for creativity, visual storytelling, generating an atmosphere. I recorded the whole soundtrack myself, I did all the costumes myself. I just think it was a really original way of presenting the information and I'm super proud that that's the way we started off this year. In a similar way, the baseball video was so much fun to put together. The set is so visually stunning and iconic. There's so many different pieces at work. Again, I'm just so proud of the work we did on the baseball one, and that needs a little bit more love from the viewers. And obviously now we come to the Pirate Trilogy, which is by far the biggest and best thing we've done to date so far. It really represents a pure distillation of the style which we've been working towards. Everything about it, the set, the atmosphere, the costume, Polly and Skelly, the music video, everything is just absolutely what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. At the risk of sounding cringe, I want to end by quoting some lyrics which are particularly meaningful to me from the song Wig in a Box from the musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch. They go, "I look back at where I'm from, look at the woman I've become, and the strangest things seem suddenly routine." And it's so true. When I look back at my life, growing up in a council estate in Leeds, not being given the chance to study film or how to make videos, yet here I am, I've been on billboards, I've written a book. The strangest things, like making documentaries, are now suddenly routine for me. I feel happy and confident in the trajectory of my life. I feel borderline unstoppable in terms of manifesting my goals and dreams. And to think that a short time ago, I felt like I was a failure and a waste of potential. But I really want to end by thanking you, because you're the ones who get me up in the morning. Every single person who watches my videos, likes, comments, shares, you're the reason why I'm doing this. All of the people who have signed up as patrons especially, I want to thank you, because that support has been crucial in enabling our recent videos to get such a high standard of quality in production. You're the ones helping me reach these higher and higher stages of filmmaking. And to everyone who simply watches my videos because they enjoy the way I present information, I am so grateful for the support you've given me over the years. I really couldn't do without you. Well, I think that's everything, to be fair. I just need to finish off the rest of my tea. I put on an outfit, write out a new script, and put a hat down on my head. Suddenly I'm Miss Johnson, Yorkshire's flying queen, until I head home and I turn back to myself.